I was on my knees, surrounded by shattered crystal, and the stunned silence of Chicago's wealthiest elite, when the billionaire grabbed my arm and everything I thought I knew about my life exploded into 1,000 pieces. His grip was iron. His voice, when it came, wasn't the polished command of a corporate titan, but something primal, desperate, broken. My God. The scar, it's identical. I tried to pull away. My sleeve had ridden up barely 3 inches. When I'd dropped to clean the mess, I'd made the glasses I'd knocked over in my clumsy rush to stay invisible. 3 inches. That's all it took to destroy 29 years of hiding. Julian Thorne, the man whose face graced Forbes covers and whose name commanded boardrooms across the nation, was staring at my inner forearm with an expression I'd never seen on anyone's face before, something between shock and desperate hope. Before I could pull away, he rolled up his own sleeve and placed his arm directly beside mine, his hand trembling. The entire ballroom gasped at once, a wave of shock rolling through hundreds of guests. On Julian Thorne's wrinkled forearm was a scar that looked exactly like mine except reversed. Mine ran along my right arm, his marked his left. The pattern was too specific to be coincidence, 2 curved lines that looked like they'd been carved with purpose. When he held his arm next to mine, they fit together like puzzle pieces, like they'd once been whole before something tore them in half. "Show me the other one," he commanded, and his voice cracked on the last word. Cameras were turning, phones were rising, the entire gala grinding to a halt around us. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His hand was shaking as he reached for my left arm, and I finally found my voice. "Don't touch me," I whispered, but it was too late. He'd already pushed up my other sleeve, revealing the matching scar. And when he saw it, when he held up his right arm to show its perfect mirror, the old man's face crumbled completely. "Arabella," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "My granddaughter, after 29 years. He turned to the frozen crowd, to the cameras, now recording every second, his voice rising to fill the cavernous hall. "This is her. This is my Arabella. The heir everyone said was dead. She's alive." The ballroom exploded into chaos. Voices erupted around us. Security rushed forward. Someone screamed about DNA tests and proof. Julian Thorne tightened his grip on my arms, his eyes locked on the matching scars. "Someone call my lawyers," he commanded. "Call the police. We're not leaving this building until I have proof this girl is my blood." I wanted to run. God, I wanted to disappear back into the kitchen, back into my invisible life as Skylar Vance, the nobody event coordinator who kept her head down and her arms covered. But his grip was unbreakable, and the crowd was pressing in. And somewhere in the chaos, I heard another voice, cold and sharp as a knife. "Grandfather, what are you doing? She's obviously a con artist. Look at her, she's nobody." The young woman who'd spoken was Julian's granddaughter, Veronica Thorne, and the look she gave me promised murder. Because if what Julian was claiming was true, if I really was Arabella Thorne returned from the dead, then everything Veronica had spent her life building, every plan for inheriting the Thorne empire, had just been ripped away by a girl in a catering uniform with scars she couldn't explain. Before I continue with what happened next, if you're invested in this story of secrets, betrayal, and reclaiming what was stolen, please hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below telling me what you would do if you suddenly discovered your entire life was a lie. Your support means everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to who I was before that night transformed everything. My name was Skylar Vance, and for 29 years that's all I'd ever been. I grew up in a cramped apartment on the south side of Chicago with Elsa Vance, the woman I called Mom. She worked double shifts as a nurse at County General, her scrubs always smelling faintly of antiseptic and exhaustion. We didn't have much. Birthdays meant boxed cake mix and a single present wrapped in newspaper comics. Christmas was whatever Elsa could afford after rent and utilities. But she loved me fiercely, protectively, in a way that sometimes felt more like fear than affection. The scars on my forearms were my earliest memory. 2 identical marks, symmetrical, running from my inner wrists up toward my elbows. They looked deliberate, too precise to be accidental. When I was little, I'd trace them with my fingers and ask Elsa what happened. She'd go pale, her hands shaking as she pulled my sleeves down. "A bad accident when you were a baby," she'd say, her voice tight. "We don't talk about it." The subject was closed, locked away like so many other things in our home. I learned not to ask questions. I learned to keep my arms covered even in the suffocating Chicago summers. Long sleeves became my armour, my secret. Kids at school noticed anyway, they always do. "Freak," they'd whisper. "What happened to your arms?" I became invisible by choice, the quiet girl in the back of every classroom, the one who didn't raise her hand, who ate lunch alone, who left no mark on anyone's memory. Elsa never let me take gymnastics or swimming lessons like other kids. No sports, no activities where I might have to show my arms. "It's safer this way," she'd say, and I believed her because what else could I do? She was all I had. When I turned 16 and wanted to work at the local diner, she forbade it. "Too public," she said. "Too many questions." I ended up filing papers in a lawyer's office basement instead, hidden away where no one would see me. College was community college paid for in cash that Elsa somehow scraped together. I studied hospitality management because it seemed practical, stable, safe. After graduation, I got a job at an events company, Luminous Occasions, coordinating the background details of other people's perfect moments. Weddings, corporate galas, fundraisers for causes I could never afford to support. I was good at being invisible, at making sure everything ran smoothly while staying out of sight. My boss Miranda appreciated that I never caused drama, never asked for raises, never pushed back when she asked me to work 18-hour days. The Thorn Dynamics annual charity gala was supposed to be just another event. I'd worked dozens like it. Show up early, coordinate with the catering staff, make sure the sound system worked. Handle any crisis that emerged and disappear before the guests even noticed I existed. I wore my standard uniform, black pants, white button-down shirt, with sleeves that covered my scars, hair pulled back in a neat bun. Invisible Skylar doing invisible work. The grand hall was spectacular that night. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors. Ice sculptures shaped like the Thorn Dynamics logo glittered on tables laden with food I'd never taste. Chicago's wealthiest and most powerful circulated like schools of exotic fish, their jewellery worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. I moved through them like a ghost, checking clipboards, speaking into my headset, solving problems before they became problems. Julian Thorne arrived fashionably late, as billionaires do. I'd seen his photo in Forbes and the Tribune. 73 years old, steel grey hair, a face carved by decades of ruthless business decisions. He was flanked by his granddaughter, Veronica Thorne, a woman my age who looked like she'd been born in Chanel. She had her grandfather's sharp eyes and sharper tongue. I'd heard her earlier berating a waiter for bringing the wrong vintage of wine. The kind of person who treated people like me as furniture. The accident happened so fast. I was checking on the appetizer table when a server backed into me, knocking a tray from my hands. Crystal glasses shattered across the marble floor in an explosion of sound that made everyone turn. My clipboard clattered away. I dropped to my knees instinctively, trying to gather the broken pieces, murmuring apologies, my face burning with humiliation. In my haste, my right sleeve rode up. Just a few inches, just enough. I didn't even realise it had happened until I heard his voice. Julian Thorne's voice, but different from the commanding tone he'd used all night. This was raw, broken, desperate. "That scar!" I looked up. He was staring at my arm, his face drained of colour. The entire ballroom had gone silent. You could have heard a diamond hit the floor. "That scar," he repeated louder now, moving toward me. His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist before I could pull my sleeve down. His fingers were cold and shaking. "Show me the other one." "Sir, I don't—" I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. "Show me." It wasn't a request. It was a command from a man used to being obeyed. And something else, something desperate. With my free hand trembling, I pulled up my left sleeve. The matching scar was revealed identical to the first. Symmetrical. Unmistakable. Julian Thorne made a sound I'll never forget. Half sob, half gasp. He pulled me to my feet, not roughly, but with an urgency that terrified me. "It's you," he said, and tears were actually running down his weathered cheeks. After all these years, Arabella, my Arabella. The room erupted, cameras flashed, voices rose in a cacophony of shock and speculation. I heard Veronica's sharp intake of breath, saw her perfect face twist with something between rage and fear. Miranda was shoving through the crowd, probably to fire me for causing a scene. But Julian didn't let go. "Clear a room," he barked at his security team. "Now, get my legal team on the phone. I want a DNA test done immediately." He turned to me, his eyes searching my face with an intensity that made me want to disappear. "What's your name?" "Skylar Vance," I whispered. "How old are you?" 29. Something in his face cracked completely then. "The same age, the exact age she'd be." He looked at his security chief. "Get us somewhere private. Call Dr. Morrison. I want preliminary DNA results within the hour." "Sir, that's not," the security chief began. Within the hour, Julian's voice could have shattered the crystal chandeliers. Everything that happened next felt like a fever dream. I was escorted to a private room off the main hall, plush and quiet, while chaos erupted behind us. Veronica tried to follow, but Julian shut the door in her face. A doctor arrived with a DNA testing kit. Julian gave a cheek swab, then looked at me expectantly. "Please," he said. And the please was what got me. This man, this billionaire who commanded empires, was saying please. I let them swab my cheek. What else could I do? Run? Where would I go? Back to my tiny apartment. Back to my invisible life. Something in Julian Thorne's eyes made running impossible. He looked at me like I was precious, like I was the answer to a prayer he'd been saying for 3 decades. While we waited, he told me the story I'd later see splashed across every news outlet in the country. 29 years ago, his son Caleb had married Emily Thorne, a kind woman from a modest background. Against all expectations, it had seemed like a love match, until it wasn't. Emily had tried to leave Caleb, tried to take their baby daughter Arabella and disappear. Caleb had been controlling, violent, dangerous. The night Emily finally fled the family estate had burned. Emily's body was found in the ruins. The baby Arabella was never found, presumed dead. Caleb had disappeared that night too, allegedly fleeing the country. The case had consumed Julian for years. Private investigators, rewards, dead ends. Eventually everyone assumed both his granddaughter and his son were dead. But I never believed it. Julian said, his voice hoarse. "I felt it, in here." He pressed his hand to his chest. "She was alive somewhere. And those scars, Emily wrote about them in her diary. Secret marks she'd made, protective symbols, something she'd done to ensure if anyone ever found her daughter, they'd know it was truly her. I thought she was being paranoid. But she was right to be paranoid." The doctor returned faster than seemed possible. His face was carefully neutral, but his hands shook as he handed Julian the preliminary report. Julian read it once, twice, then looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. 99.8% probability of familial match, he said. "You're her. You're my Arabella." And that's when my world ended and began again simultaneously. The media frenzy was immediate and suffocating. By the time I left the Grand Hall, there were news vans parked outside. My photo, blurry and shocked-looking, was already circulating online. The headlines were breathless and invasive. "Lost Heiress found after 29 years. Cinderella story event coordinator revealed as Billionaire's granddaughter. The Thorne heir returns mystery of fire survivor solved." Julian insisted on having security escort me home. I didn't argue. I couldn't think straight. My tiny studio apartment on the south side had never felt smaller, shabbier. The security team swept it like they expected assassins, then posted guards outside. I sat on my threadbare couch, still in my work clothes, and stared at my scars. These marks that I'd spent my entire life hiding were suddenly the proof of an identity I didn't know I had. Elsa. I needed to talk to Elsa. I called her 3 times before she answered. Her voice was tight with fear the moment she heard me. "Skylar, why are you calling so late? What's wrong?" "I need you to come home, Mum, right now." "I'm at work, sweetie. My shift doesn't end until—" "Now, Mum, I know." The silence on the other end of the line stretched like a chasm. Then quietly she said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. She was there in 15. When she walked through my door and saw my face, saw the way I was looking at her, all the colour drained from her cheeks. She knew. Of course she knew. We sat across from each other at my tiny kitchen table, and for the first time in 29 years, I demanded the truth. "How did you find me?" I asked, my voice shaking. Elsa's hands twisted in her lap. She looked older, suddenly fragile. "In the woods," she said finally. "About 30 miles outside the city. It was winter February. I was driving home from a night shift and I saw smoke. A house fire set back from the road. I pulled over to call 911 and that's when I heard crying. A baby crying." Her voice broke. "You were in the bushes wrapped in a blanket. You couldn't have been more than a few months old. You were freezing, crying alone. And you just took me. You didn't call the police." "I did." Her voice was desperate now. "I called 911, told them about the fire, but when the operator asked if anyone was inside, I looked at you, at your little face, and something stopped me. There was a note pinned to your blanket, a burned piece of paper with a message. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. What did it say?" Elsa stood up, moved to her purse, and pulled out a small envelope I'd never seen before. Her hands shook as she opened it and handed me a plastic sleeve. Inside was a charred scrap of paper, the edges black, the handwriting barely legible, but the words were clear enough. "If she survives, the Guardian will find her first. Don't let him know." "Him," I repeated. "Julian, my grandfather." "I didn't know who him was," Elsa said, tears running down her face now. "But the note terrified me. Someone had put you in those bushes deliberately. Someone wanted you hidden. And you had these scars, these strange, identical scars. I was scared that if I turned you in, someone would hurt you. Or take you somewhere you'd disappear. So I kept you. I changed my name, moved apartments 3 times in the first year, worked only cash jobs for a while. I lived in terror every single day that someone would find us. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to rage at her for stealing my identity, my inheritance, my family. But when I looked at her, at the woman who'd worked herself to exhaustion to keep me fed and clothed and safe, all I felt was a complicated, aching gratitude mixed with betrayal. "You should have told me." "I know," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Skylar. I'm so sorry." "My name is Arabella," I said, and saying it felt like stepping off a cliff. The next days were a whirlwind. Julian arranged for comprehensive DNA testing at 3 independent labs. All came back the same. I was Arabella Thorne, daughter of Emily Thorne, granddaughter of Julian Thorne, heir to a fortune I couldn't comprehend. Julian moved me into a secured penthouse apartment in the Loop, filled with furniture worth more than Elsa's annual salary. He hired lawyers, publicists, security teams. He cried every time he looked at me. "You have your mother's eyes," he kept saying. But not everyone was happy about my return. Veronica Thorne made her position clear at our first family dinner. The table could have seated 20, but it was just the 3 of us in Julian's private dining room. Veronica sat across from me, her face a mask of perfect makeup and cold rage. "This is awfully convenient," she said, cutting into her steak with precise angry movements. A nobody event coordinator suddenly claims to be the long-lost heiress. "How much is she paying you?" "Veronica," Julian warned. "No, grandfather. Someone needs to say it. We don't know this girl. She could be anyone. A con artist. An opportunist. She shows up with some scars and suddenly she's Arabella. It's ridiculous." "The DNA tests," Julian began. "Can be faked," Veronica interrupted. "For the right price, I want independent verification. I want her background checked. I want to know everything about her and this supposed mother who found her." She turned her cold gaze on me. "Where did you really come from, Skylar? Who put you up to this?" I met her stare without flinching. 29 years of making myself invisible had taught me how to read people, how to see the fear beneath the anger. Veronica wasn't worried I was a fraud. She was worried I was real. "I didn't ask for any of this," I said quietly. "I was happy being nobody. You're welcome to the fortune. I just want to know who I am." "How noble," Veronica sneered. "We'll see how long that lasts when you get your first trust fund statement." Julian slammed his hand on the table hard enough to make the crystal glasses ring. "Enough, Arabella is my granddaughter. The tests prove it. If you can't accept that, Veronica, you're welcome to leave." Veronica stood up her chair, scraping against the marble floor. Don't worry, grandfather, I'm not going anywhere. Someone needs to protect this family from gold diggers. She left her heels clicking sharply against the floor, a sound like a threat. That night alone in my new penthouse, I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the silence too complete. I was used to the sounds of the city sirens and shouting and life happening all around me. Up here, 40 stories above Chicago, I felt untethered, lost. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the news articles about me. Most were sympathetic, painting me as a Cinderella figure, but some were skeptical, questioning my motives, my background. One tabloid had found Elsa and photographed her leaving the hospital, making her look haggard and suspicious. "Is this the woman who stole the Thorn heir?" the headline screamed. My phone rang. "Julian, are you awake?" he asked. "Yes. Can you come to my study? There's something I need to show you." His study was a cathedral of wealth. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that probably cost more than a car, and on the walls, photographs. I recognised some from the news articles about the fire. Emily Thorne, my mother young and smiling, holding a baby. Me. Julian pointed to one particular photo. "That's the last picture taken of you and your mother, 2 days before the fire." I stepped closer. Emily had dark hair like mine, pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wasn't classically beautiful, but there was something warm in her face, something kind. The baby in her arms was laughing, reaching for the camera. We looked happy. "Your mother was the best thing that ever happened to this family," Julian said quietly. "She was smart, compassionate, everything my son wasn't." When Caleb started showing his true nature, Emily tried to protect you. She came to me 3 weeks before the fire and begged me to help her leave him. I told her I would, but I needed time to arrange it legally to protect my grandson's rights. His voice broke. "I was a fool. I was thinking about the company, about scandal, about the wrong things. I should have just taken you both away that night. Instead, Emily died and you disappeared, and Caleb..." He stopped. His jaw clenched. "What happened to him?" I asked. "He vanished. That night after the fire, he disappeared. The police suspected him, but there was no proof. His passport was flagged, but he never used it. For years I thought he was dead too. But 6 months ago I received information that he's alive, operating under a false identity, and he's been acquiring shares of Thorn Dynamics through shell companies preparing for something." A chill ran down my spine. "What?" "A hostile takeover. He wants the company Arabella. And now that you've returned, he'll want you too. He always saw you as property, something that belonged to him." I sat down heavily in one of the leather chairs. "You're saying my father, the man who killed my mother, is out there, and he's coming for me?" "I won't let him touch you," Julian said fiercely. "I have the best security in the world. But you need to know the danger. You need to be prepared." Sleep was impossible after that. I spent the night researching everything I could find about Caleb Thorne. The few photos of him showed a handsome man with cold eyes. Articles from before the fire described him as brilliant, but volatile, a genius businessman with a temper. One business partner was quoted as saying, "Caleb doesn't see people as people. He sees assets and liabilities. Cross him once and you're done." This was my father. This was the man whose blood ran through my veins. The thought made me sick. The next morning, Julian arranged for me to visit the site where the fire had occurred. "Your mother left clues," he said. "She told me once that if anything happened to her, I should look for the painting. I never understood what she meant. The estate was ruins, now blackened beams and crumbling walls surrounded by forest that had reclaimed the land. It was eerily quiet. My security team swept the area first, then Julian and I walked through what had once been the main house. "This was the living room," Julian said, pointing, "and that was the nursery." I stood in what had been my first home. Tears blurred my vision. I could almost hear echoes of laughter, of a mother singing to her baby, of a life that should have been mine. "Your mother loved art," Julian said. "She painted. Nothing professional, just for herself. She had one favourite piece, a landscape of a lighthouse. She kept it in your nursery." He walked to where a wall had partially collapsed. "It was here. I checked after the fire, but everything was destroyed." I looked around the ruins. Something caught my eye, a glint of metal beneath fallen bricks. I knelt down, ignoring Julian's protests, and dug carefully. My fingers closed around something hard and rectangular. A small metal box, scorched but intact. "Arabella, be careful," Julian said. I pried open the box. Inside, protected from the flames, was a USB drive wrapped in plastic and a folded letter, the paper yellowed but readable. My hands shook as I unfolded it. "My dearest Arabella," it began in handwriting I somehow recognised even though I'd never seen it before. "If you're reading this, then I didn't make it, but you did. You survived just as I prayed you would. I've hidden this letter where only the lighthouse painting would reveal it, where only you or my father would know to look. The USB drive contains everything you need to know. Everything I couldn't say while Caleb was watching. Please forgive me for the scars. I know they hurt you, but they were the only way I could think to mark you, to make sure that if you were found, the right people would know you were mine. I love you more than anything in this world. And if Julian is reading this with you, know that he is your true guardian. Trust him, be strong, be brave, be everything I wanted to be but wasn't strong enough to become. Your mother, Emily." I couldn't breathe. Julian was reading over my shoulder, and when I looked up, his face was wet with tears. We drove back to his penthouse in silence, the USB drive burning in my pocket like a live coal. The files on the USB drive were devastating. Emily had documented everything. Videos of Caleb's rages, smashing plates, punching walls, screaming threats. Audio recordings of him telling her she was worthless, that she'd never leave, that he owned her and the baby. Financial records showing he'd been embezzling from Thorn Dynamics for years, hiding money in offshore accounts. And a final video, dated 2 days before the fire, of Emily speaking directly to the camera, her face bruised, her voice steady, despite the fear in her eyes. "If you're watching this, I'm dead," she said. "Caleb found out I was planning to leave. He told me tonight that if I tried to take Arabella, he'd kill us both. But I can't let my baby grow up with him. Tomorrow I'm taking her and running. I've arranged for help. If something happens, if he finds us, please know that I tried. Please know that I loved my daughter more than life. And please, anyone, make sure he pays for what he's done." We watched the entire drive in Julian's private office. By the end, I was shaking with rage. This man, my father, had terrorised my mother, had driven her to such desperation that she'd marked her baby with scars as a form of protection, had likely killed her when she tried to escape, and now he wanted to take everything else too. "We go to the police," I said. "With this evidence, they can charge him. They can find him." "We will," Julian agreed. "But first we secure the company. If Caleb succeeds in his takeover, he'll have the resources to disappear forever. We need to stop him at the shareholder meeting next week." "How?" "By proving you're the rightful heir. By transferring control to you before he can make his move. It's the last thing he'll expect." I was terrified. I knew nothing about running a billion-dollar corporation. But I thought of Emily's face in that video, the bruises, the fear, the love. I thought of all the years I'd spent making myself small and invisible, and I decided I was done hiding. The next days were intense preparation. Julian's team taught me everything I needed to know about Thorn Dynamics, the major shareholders, the board members, the company structure. Veronica, I learned, held a significant amount of shares and a senior vice president position. She'd been groomed to take over since she was a teenager. My return had destroyed her carefully laid plans. She cornered me in Julian's private elevator 2 days before the shareholder meeting. We were alone, and her perfectly composed mask slipped. "You think you can just waltz in and take everything," she hissed. "I've worked my entire life for this company. I earned my place. You're just a sob story with convenient scars." "I don't want to take anything from you, Veronica," I said tiredly. "I didn't ask for this." "Liar," she spat. "You're just like every other gold digger, and when I'm done exposing you, everyone will know it. I've already hired investigators. They're digging into your past, into your mother's past. How much did you pay her to play along? How much did it cost to fake those DNA tests?" "You can investigate all you want," I said, meeting her furious gaze. "The truth is the truth." "The truth," Veronica laughed bitterly, "is that you're a nobody who got lucky, and luck runs out." The elevator doors opened. She stepped out, then turned back. "By the way, you might want to check your brakes. Chicago traffic is so dangerous." It took a moment for the threat to register. By the time it did, she was gone. That night, driving back to my penthouse in the car Julian had provided, I thought about Veronica's parting words. I should have taken them more seriously. The car was weaving through downtown traffic when I pressed the brake pedal to slow for a red light. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. The pedal went straight to the floor. "No, no, no," I whispered, my heart lurching into my throat. The intersection was approaching fast. Cross-traffic was flowing. I yanked the steering wheel, swerving around a taxi horn blaring. My security detail was somewhere behind me, but I couldn't see them. I pumped the brakes desperately. Dead. Completely dead. The speedometer said 45, and I was still accelerating. My mind raced through options. I couldn't crash into another car. Too many people. The upcoming intersection was massive, 6 lanes in each direction. I was going to die. Just like my mother. Just like Caleb wanted. No, I wouldn't let him win. I saw it ahead. A construction zone, barriers and sand barrels set up as a buffer zone. I cranked the wheel hard right, jumping the curb. People scattered, screaming. The car ploughed through the barriers, into the sand barrels, the airbags exploding in my face with a sound like a gunshot. The impact threw me forward against the seatbelt, then back. Everything went dark for a moment. When I came to, my security team was prying open the door. Police sirens wailed nearby. I was alive. Bruised, shaking, terrified, but alive. The first thing I said when they got me out was, "Check the brake line. Someone cut it." They did. It had been severed cleanly professionally. Not an accident. Attempted murder. Julian went ballistic. He tripled my security, moved me to a safe house, and demanded the police investigate immediately. But I knew they wouldn't find anything useful. Whoever had done this was too professional, too careful. I also knew with absolute certainty that Veronica hadn't done it herself. She'd just delivered the warning. Someone else wanted me dead. Someone with the resources and skill to make it look like an accident. Caleb, my father, the monster who'd killed my mother, was now trying to kill me. The shareholder meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon at Thorn Dynamics headquarters. Julian wanted to cancel it, to postpone until I was safe, but I refused. "If we wait, he wins," I said. "He's counting on me being scared. He's counting on me running. I won't give him the satisfaction." "Arabella, you almost died last night." "My mother did die," I said, "and I'm not going to let her death or my survival mean nothing." The boardroom of Thorn Dynamics was exactly as intimidating as I'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, a table that could seat 30, and filling those seats were the most powerful people in Chicago's business world. Shareholders, board members, financial advisors. And Veronica sitting near the head of the table like she owned the place. Julian opened the meeting with the standard formalities, but tension crackled through the room like electricity. Everyone knew something big was coming. Veronica kept glancing at her phone, a small smile playing at her lips. She was waiting for something. 20 minutes into the meeting, the conference room doors opened. A man walked in, flanked by lawyers. He was in his 50s, handsome in a cold way, with dark hair greying at the temples and eyes that reminded me horribly of my own. I knew who he was before Julian said anything. Some things you recognise in your bones. "Caleb," Julian said, his voice like ice. My father smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Hello, Father. It's been a while." His gaze swept the room, then landed on me. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, possession. And this must be my daughter. Every person in the room shifted uncomfortably. The air felt heavy, dangerous. Caleb walked around the table slowly, deliberately, until he was standing directly behind my chair. I could feel his presence like a physical weight. "Arabella," he said softly, "I've been searching for you for so long." I didn't turn around. Couldn't turn around. My hands were clenched so tightly in my lap that my nails cut into my palms. "My name is Skylar," I said. "And you're not my father. You're a murderer." The room went silent. Caleb's hand landed on my shoulder, and it took every ounce of self-control not to flinch. Now, let's not be dramatic. I'm here to discuss business." As the majority shareholder of Thorn Dynamics, I'm calling for an immediate vote on new leadership. My father is clearly unfit to make rational decisions, as evidenced by his willingness to hand over $1 billion corporation to a girl who spent her life working as a party planner. That's not, Julian started. I have proxy votes from 60% of shareholders, Caleb continued smoothly. They agree with me. It's time for new management. And since Arabella is clearly too inexperienced to run the company herself, I propose that I, as her father and closest living relative, take over as CEO and manage her inheritance until she's capable of handling it herself. He was good. I had to give him that. The pitch was smooth, reasonable sounding. Several board members were nodding. They didn't see the monster Emily had documented. They saw a successful businessman making a practical proposal. Veronica was smiling openly now. She'd known. She'd been working with him. I support my uncle's proposal, she said. Grandfather is too emotionally involved to make sound decisions right now. We need stable leadership. Julian looked stricken. He'd built this company from nothing, and now his own son and granddaughter were staging a coup. He looked at me helplessly. I stood up. Caleb's hand fell away from my shoulder. I pulled out the USB drive Emily had left me and held it up. Before we vote on anything, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, I think everyone should see what's on this drive. It contains video and audio evidence documenting Caleb Thorne's abuse of my mother, Emily Thorne. It also contains financial records proving he embezzled over $50 million from this company before the fire that killed her. Caleb's mask slipped for just a moment. I saw rage flash across his face, quickly covered. That's absurd. Some manufactured evidence that... It's my mother's voice, I interrupted. Her face, her records, and I have independent forensic analysis confirming it's all authentic. Would you like me to play it for everyone here, or should we discuss what really happened the night of the fire? The board members were murmuring now, looking at Caleb with new suspicion. He was losing them, and he knew it. His facade cracked completely then. You stupid little bitch, he snarled, lunging for me. That evidence was supposed to be destroyed. How did you... Julian's security team grabbed him before he could reach me. He fought against them, screaming, She's mine. She's my daughter. I have every right. His lawyers were trying to calm him down, but it was too late. Everyone in the room had seen his true nature. Veronica had gone pale. She was realizing her alliance had just imploded spectacularly. I addressed the room, ignoring Caleb's continued ranting. This USB drive will be turned over to the Chicago Police Department today, along with a formal complaint. But before that happens, I want to make something very clear. I didn't come back to claim a fortune. I came back because my mother died trying to protect me from that man, and I refused to let her death be meaningless. Thorn Dynamics was built by my grandfather through honest work. It was nearly destroyed by my father's greed and violence. I may not have a business degree or years of experience, but I have something more important. I have integrity, and I have every intention of protecting this company and everyone who works here from people who see it as nothing but a tool for their own gain. I turned to Veronica. That includes you. I have evidence that you've been coordinating with Caleb through shell companies helping him acquire shares. The authorities will be investigating your involvement as well. Her perfect composure shattered. I didn't know what he'd done. He told me he was the legitimate heir. He said you were a con artist. But you were willing to destroy me anyway, I said quietly. You leaked false information about my background to the press. You made threats. And based on the police investigation into my brake lines, there's evidence linking the mechanic who sabotaged my car to an account you have access to. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. I didn't try to kill you. I would never... Maybe not directly, I said. But you created the environment where someone thought they could. You made it clear you wanted me gone, and someone took that as permission. Police officers entered the boardroom then. Julian had timed it perfectly. They read Caleb his rights while he screamed about his lawyers and his rights and how I was lying. They asked Veronica to come with them for questioning. She went silently, her face crumbling. When the room finally cleared, it was just me, Julian, and the stunned board members. Julian turned to them. Gentlemen, ladies, my granddaughter has proven beyond any doubt that she is Emily's daughter, my rightful heir, and someone with the courage to stand up to the worst this family has produced. I move that we vote to transfer controlling interest in Thorne Dynamics to Arabella Thorne effective immediately. The vote was unanimous. The aftermath was messy, as these things always are. Caleb was charged with murder, arson, embezzlement, and attempted murder. The evidence from Emily's USB drive was damning enough that his lawyers advised him to take a plea deal. He's serving life without parole now. I don't visit him. I have no desire to. Veronica was charged as an accessory to attempted murder, though she maintained she hadn't known about the sabotaged brakes. The evidence was circumstantial enough that she got a plea deal too. 5 years, of which she'll probably serve 3. I don't think about her much. She's just another person who saw me as an obstacle instead of a human being. The media couldn't get enough of the story. Cinderella turned corporate warrior princess. It made me uncomfortable, all the attention, but I used it strategically. I did interviews about my mother, about domestic violence, about the signs of abuse that people miss. I donated a substantial portion of my inheritance to women's shelters and organisations that help survivors escape dangerous situations. It felt like the right way to honour Emily's memory. Taking over Thorne Dynamics was terrifying. I spent 18-hour days learning everything I could, leaning heavily on Julian's guidance and the experienced team he'd built. I made mistakes, but I also made changes, implementing new ethical standards, improving working conditions, establishing a foundation to support causes Emily would have cared about. Elsa and I had a complicated reconciliation. I couldn't just forgive her for keeping the truth from me, but I understood why she'd done it. She'd been a young woman who found a baby in the woods with a terrifying note, and she'd made the choice she thought would keep me safe. We see each other regularly now. She retired from nursing, and I made sure she'd never have to worry about money again. She's not my mother in blood, but she's the one who raised me. That means something. Julian and I have grown close. He's teaching me everything he knows about the business, but also about Emily, about who she was before Caleb destroyed her. We visit her grave together on her birthday. I've learned that grief doesn't fade, it just becomes part of you, a scar that marks where love used to live openly. The scars on my arms no longer make me want to hide. I wear short sleeves now. When people ask about them, I tell them the truth. They're my mother's last gift to me, a way of ensuring that even if she couldn't save herself, she could save me. They're not marks of shame. They're marks of survival, of a love so fierce it reached across 29 years to bring me home. I think about alternative realities sometimes. What if Julian hadn't been at that gala? What if I'd kept my sleeves down? What if Elsa had turned me over to the authorities all those years ago? Would I be happier? Safer? Would I still be? Skylar Vance, invisible and uncomplicated? I don't know. What I do know is that I'm Arabella Thorne now, and I'm also still Skylar Vance, the girl who learned how to survive, how to be invisible when necessary, how to read people and situations. Both identities are true, both are mine, and together they make me stronger than either one alone could ever be. My mother died trying to give me a life free from fear and control. She didn't succeed in her lifetime, but she succeeded in mine. Every day I run this company ethically. Every time I use my platform to help others. Every time I look at my scars and feel pride instead of shame, I'm honouring her sacrifice. I'm being the woman she wanted to be, but wasn't given the chance to become. The monster who terrorised her is locked away forever. The company she loved is thriving under new leadership committed to doing good, and the daughter she died protecting is finally truly free. That's not revenge, that's justice, that's healing, that's love transcending death and time and fear. Some scars tell stories of pain, others tell stories of survival. Mine tell both, and I wear them now as the badges of honour. They always were proof that even in the darkest circumstances, love finds a way to save us. So here's my question for you. When you look at your own scars, whether they're visible or hidden, deep inside, what story do they tell? Are they reminders of pain or proof of survival? And more importantly, are you ready to stop hiding them? Because I promise you, the moment you stop making yourself invisible to please others, the moment you decide your story matters, that's when your real life begins. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or disposable, if you've ever wondered whether you deserve more than what you've been given, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about people who refuse to stay down, who transformed their pain into power. And drop a comment telling me your story. What scars are you hiding? What would it take for you to wear them proudly? I read every comment, and your stories matter. They matter to me, and they matter to everyone else who needs to know they're not alone. Let's build a community of survivors, of fighters, of people who know that being kind to yourself isn't selfish, it's revolutionary. See you in the next one.